Josh announced his intention to make a toast, raising his glass as all the attendees at his housewarming party turned their attention to him. His eyes shone with enthusiasm, a look I had observed numerous times when he was poised to take center stage. He looked forward to new beginnings, new residences, and he paused with notable emphasis. I am writing this in memory of Grandpa. A moment of respectful silence enveloped the room. Our grandfather passed away just 4 days ago, and the loss remains deeply felt by all of us. I raised my glass in unison with the others, respectfully commemorating the individual who had significant importance in my life. With a nod to Grandpa, Josh proceeded to place his drink on the coffee table, saying, "I have an announcement to share." I observed as he retrieved an envelope from his pocket, which appeared slightly worn at the edges. My heart experienced a moment of heightened anticipation. The manner in which he looked at me instilled a sense of unease. "Prior to his passing, Grandpa entrusted me with this letter," Josh remarked, his voice resonating throughout the living room of his new residence in Denver. He expressed his desire for me to inherit his vacation home by the lake, a location that held cherished memories for all of us during our childhood. The room was filled with expressions of surprise and congratulations. My parents expressed their pride, while Josh's girlfriend Teresa applauded enthusiastically. My cousin Jenna cast a perplexed glance in my direction from across the room. She was aware of the close relationship that existed between my grandfather and me. I remained in a state of shock, unable to comprehend the information being presented to me. The lakeside cabin was the most valued possession of my grandfather. This location was where I dedicated nearly every weekend over the past 3 years to assisting him in maintaining the property, engaging in his narratives, and appreciating his companionship. In contrast, Josh had only visited twice in the past 5 years, consistently expressing dissatisfaction with the absence of Wi-Fi and limited activities available. More significantly, my grandfather presented me with a small wooden box 3 weeks ago, requiring me to promise not to open it until the appropriate moment arrived. Enclosed was a notarized deed that formally transferred ownership of the vacation home to my name. He had previously transferred the property to me. It was not included in his estate. As Josh opened the letter and commenced reading what were purportedly Grandpa's wishes, I observed his expression closely. Was he being untruthful? Was he aware of the deed? Had my grandfather possibly changed his mind without informing me? That is excellent. I expressed my congratulations to Josh with a strained smile. Despite my racing thoughts, I needed to return home promptly to review the documents contained in that wooden box. I discreetly excused myself, indicating that I needed to use the restroom, and departed from the celebration. Upon closing the bathroom door, I leaned against it and inhaled deeply. The letter that Josh presented to everyone was unclear. In his final months, my grandfather's handwriting had deteriorated significantly due to arthritis, however. The signature I observed appeared notably smooth and assured. I received a text message from Jenna on my phone. "Are you doing well?" That was unusual. Josh did not express any interest in the cabin. I responded to Jenna, indicating that I need to verify something at home. "Could you please take over and let her know that I had to report to work?" In a matter of minutes, she had communicated my apologies to the family, allowing me to discreetly exit through the back door while everyone remained preoccupied with Josh's inheritance. The journey to my apartment felt extraordinary. The streetlights became indistinct as recollections of my grandfather enveloped my thoughts. He imparted lessons on fishing from the dock, highlighted constellations in the pristine mountain sky, and shared laughter over my unsuccessful attempts to skip stones across the lake. The vacation home represented more than mere property. It served as the foundation for our most cherished memories. This location held significant meaning for us, as it was where my grandfather imparted lessons on resilience, patience, and the appreciation of life's simple pleasures. Josh had not previously demonstrated any interest in the lessons or the cabin itself. The announcement was perceived as a breach of something revered. Upon arriving home, I proceeded directly to my closet to retrieve the wooden box that my grandfather had bestowed upon me. The item in question was an antique cigar box, polished to a smooth finish over time, with the cedar retaining its pleasant aroma upon being opened. He advised me not to open this until I required the truth. His eyes crinkling with a familiar wisdom that implied he possessed more knowledge than he was disclosing. My hands shook as I raised the lid. Within the contents were several meticulously folded documents, a sealed envelope bearing my name, and a small brass key that I recognized instantly. I unlocked the antique roll-top desk in my grandfather's study at the cabin. As I unfolded the top document, I was filled with surprise. The document was precisely as I recalled. A notarized deed that transferred ownership of the vacation home to me. Dated 6 months prior. Accompanying it was a letter written in my grandfather's distinctly unsteady handwriting. Dear Jules, it has commenced. By the time you read this, I will likely have departed. I have chosen to transfer ownership of the cabin to you during my lifetime to prevent any potential complications. You are the only individual who appreciated this place as deeply as I did. Your brother has only demonstrated interest when he required a venue for hosting parties in my absence. Tears blurred my vision as I continued to read. I understand that your brother may dispute this matter, which is why I have ensured that all documents are properly notarized and filed. A copy is with my attorney, Harold Thompson. The cabin is now officially yours. This does not constitute a part of my will or estate. I have confidence that you will uphold the essence of our unique location. I took a moment to process the situation, feeling astonished. Josh was not truthful. He had created a false letter, fully aware that Grandpa had already transferred the property to me. The level of audacity displayed was remarkable, even by his standards. I received several messages from my parents inquiring about my whereabouts. Josh also sent a text message. Josh performed an impressive vanishing act. Please feel free to request permission to visit the cabin, and we will be pleased to accommodate your request. At that moment, I realized the course of action I needed to take. I would advise against confronting him through text or phone communication. No, this required a more straightforward approach. I organized the documents, returned them to the box, and verified the time. The event will continue for a few more hours. I composed myself, took a deep breath, and returned to my vehicle. The moment had arrived for the truth to be revealed. The journey back to Josh's residence provided me with an opportunity for reflection. I had no intention of creating a disturbance. That did not align with my preferences. And it was certainly not in accordance with what my grandfather would have desired. He consistently advised me that when one possesses the truth, there is no need to proclaim it loudly. The subtle truth often has a more profound impact than any overt falsehood. I parked a block away from Josh's residence, ensuring that the wooden box was securely placed on the passenger seat beside me. For a brief period, I remained seated, summoning my resolve. I reflected on the weekends I had spent with my grandfather at the cabin, during which Josh was occupied and unable to visit. I recall the way my grandfather's expression would brighten upon my arrival and how we would engage in lengthy conversations about various topics while seated on the porch swing. What actions would you take, Grandpa? I spoke softly while gliding my fingers across the smooth surface of the box. The response emerged almost instantaneously in my thoughts. I performed the appropriate action with elegance. I chose to refrain from re-entering the party immediately. I opted to send a text message to Jenna instead. What is the current number of individuals present? She responded promptly, indicating that it is now solely family. The majority of guests departed following dinner. Will you be returning? This was exemplary. I preferred to avoid a crowd for the task at hand. I carried the box and proceeded to walk the brief distance to Josh's front entrance. Josh's expression changed from surprise to caution when I knocked. Has the work emergency concluded? He inquired, his tone indicating skepticism regarding the existence of one in the first place. I would like to discuss something with you, Josh, I stated calmly as I stepped past him into the house. All the individuals present turned their attention to me as I entered the living room. My father was closely examining what appeared to be Josh's letter, while my mother was engaged in discussions regarding renovation plans for the cabin with Teresa. Jenna remained seated in the corner, observing the situation with evident unease. My mother announced that Jules has returned. We were recently discussing Josh's excellent news regarding the cabin. I mentioned that Josh had placed the wooden box on the coffee table. I would like to discuss that matter. Josh's gaze fixed on the box. A look of recognition emerging on his face. Could you please clarify what that is? He inquired, although I could discern from his expression that he had a strong suspicion. I explained that it was something my grandfather had given me 3 weeks ago. Maintaining a steady tone, he requested that I refrain from opening it until the appropriate time has arrived. I made direct eye contact with Josh. I believe that the time is now. Before Josh had the opportunity to voice his objections, my father leaned forward with keen interest. Could you please clarify what it is? Jewels? I opened the box and meticulously extracted the notarized deed along with my grandfather's letter. 6 months ago, my grandfather formally transferred ownership of the vacation home to me, I stated, placing the documents on the table for everyone to review. It is already in my possession. He left this item out of his estate or will. The room became quiet. My mother's expression shifted in surprise, while my father examined the deed with a concerned furrow in his brow. Josh remained motionless, his complexion paling significantly. The document has been notarized, and my father has verified its contents. This signature undoubtedly belongs to your grandfather. Josh finally said, That's not feasible. My grandfather provided me with the letter. He expressed a desire for me to have the cabin. Could I please review that letter once more? I inquired, extending my hand toward my father. He presented it, and I positioned it alongside my grandfather's handwritten letter from my collection. The distinction was clear and evident. The handwriting on Josh's letter appeared to be an imitation, however. It did not exhibit the characteristic shakiness associated with Grandpa's arthritis. The signature exhibited an excessive degree of precision and control. Josh, my mother stated softly, her voice barely audible, did you create this letter unlawfully? His silence served as a sufficient response. Josh's silence extended for an uncomfortable duration before he finally spoke, his voice reflecting a blend of defiance and desperation. Your understanding appears to be lacking. It is unjust that she receives all the advantages. All aspects? I expressed my confusion sincerely. Could you please clarify your statement? Josh remarked that you were consistently Grandpa's favorite, his words flowing out rapidly as if through a broken dam. You always made sure to visit him, consistently providing assistance to him. She was always the model grandchild. The remainder of us had limited visibility in the matter. My father cleared his throat, indicating his discomfort with the direction the conversation had taken. Josh, irrespective of your feelings, it is important to recognize that forging your grandfather's signature is a serious matter. My mother interjected, requesting to see both letters as she reached for them. She conducted a side-by-side comparison, her expression transitioning from disbelief to disappointment. Oh, Josh, she expressed with a sigh. How could you have made this decision? Teresa gradually rose to her feet, her complexion notably pale. She expressed her intention to leave, murmuring softly while avoiding Josh's imploring gaze as she collected her purse and proceeded toward the door. Teresa, please wait, Josh called after her, but she had already left, the front door closing decisively behind her. The room became quiet once more. Jenna attracted my attention and offered a subtle, encouraging nod. She consistently recognized Josh's behavior, even when our parents were unable to do so. My father expressed his confusion, finally turning to Josh. What is the rationale behind announcing such information without verifying its accuracy first? The reading of the will is scheduled for next week. Josh's face turned red with a mix of anger and embarrassment. He acknowledged the deed upon my discovering it. Last week, I visited my grandfather's attorney to inquire about the estate. During our discussion, Thompson indicated that the cabin was not included as it had already been addressed. He refrained from providing further details due to client confidentiality, but I understood the implications. I considered the possibility of making the announcement first. Could you please clarify your thoughts? My mother insisted. Perhaps Jules would be willing to grant you access to it. Perhaps, for once, everyone would believe me rather than her. Josh remarked, his voice escalating. I would like to possess something that held significance for Grandpa as well. His remarks lingered in the atmosphere, indicating a level of jealousy that was more profound than I had previously understood. I experienced a moment of sympathy. Notwithstanding the circumstances, did he genuinely feel excluded from his grandfather's life? I softly mentioned to Josh that Grandpa has extended numerous invitations for him to join him at the cabin. You consistently indicated that you were preoccupied with other commitments. He responded sharply, as I felt like an intruder. By the time I became aware of what I had overlooked, it was too late. You both shared a unique connection, characterized by your private humor and established traditions. There was insufficient space available for my presence. My father shook his head, his expression clearly reflecting disappointment. That does not provide a valid reason for deceiving the entire family. Son. Josh settled into a chair, appearing to have lost his energy and resolve. He inquired about the next steps, avoiding eye contact with any of us. We have taken note of your point, Jules. Congratulations on your victory. This situation transcends the concept of winning, I remarked, reflecting on my grandfather's values and what he would desire in this moment. Despite Josh's dishonesty, he remained my brother, and Grandpa had cared for him as well. In his own manner, I retrieved an item from the wooden box that I had not previously mentioned, a sealed envelope addressed to Josh, inscribed in my grandfather's distinctive handwriting. I informed my brother that he had also left something for him as I extended it toward him. Josh raised his gaze, a conflict of suspicion and hope evident in his expression. Could you please clarify what it is? I must admit that I am uncertain. My grandfather advised me not to open any correspondence that did not specifically address me. Following a brief moment of contemplation, Josh accepted the envelope and proceeded to open it with care. As he reviewed the contents, his expression transitioned from a defensive stance to one of shock, ultimately evolving into what appeared to be sincere remorse. He was aware, Josh stated at last, his voice scarcely above a whisper. He was aware that I might attempt to assert my claim to the cabin. My mother took a seat beside him. Could you please clarify what it states? Josh paused briefly before presenting her with the letter. Please review it, he instructed. Everyone must be aware of this crucial information. My mother adjusted her reading glasses and began the task. Dear Josh, if you are reading this, it indicates that Jules has accessed my cedar box, which suggests one of two possibilities. Either I am absent, or an event has occurred that prompted her to disclose its contents. I have known you since the day of your birth, and I am familiar with your character. You have consistently sought recognition and validation, which I may not have provided in the manner you required. However, I recognize that when individuals feel overlooked, they may occasionally make impulsive decisions that can negatively impact both others and themselves. The cabin has been officially transferred to Jules. This decision was made after careful consideration and with deep affection. It was not due to a lack of care for you, but rather because Jules established a connection with the place that you did not experience. She comprehended the significance it held for me, and I have confidence in her ability to maintain that essence. What you require is not a property, Josh. It serves a specific purpose. A check in the amount of $25 is enclosed. Utilize it to initiate a significant endeavor. Discover what ignites your passion in the same manner that the cabin does for Jules. It could be the business idea you referenced last Christmas, or it may be an entirely different concept. I trust that in the future you will recognize that this matter transcends preferences or notions of equity. It involves acknowledging the diverse journeys suited to various individuals. Jules will ensure that the door at the cabin remains open for you. Of that I am confident. The growth of your own business is the foundation of your future. Your words are filled with affection and optimism, Grandpa. At the conclusion of my mother's reading, the emotional atmosphere in the room was palpable, leaving no one unaffected. Josh sat with his head lowered, the check firmly grasped in his unsteady hand. He remarked that even from the grave, he perceived my true self. My father placed a reassuring hand on Josh's shoulder. Your grandfather was an astute individual. Josh gazed at me with a level of attention that seemed unprecedented. Possibly for the first time in years. I apologize, Jules. I overstepped my bounds in attempting to claim what rightfully belonged to you. The words appeared to weigh heavily on him, yet they conveyed a sense of sincerity. I acknowledged his apology with a nod, though I was not yet prepared to extend forgiveness. I observed that there was an additional item in the box. and I reached for it once more. I retrieved a small photo album and opened it to display photographs that encompass several years. During our childhood, Josh and I spent time at the cabin, constructing sandcastles by the lake and roasting marshmallows with our grandfather at the fire pit. I explained that he kept this in his desk at the cabin while turning the pages to display more recent photographs. He consistently maintained hope that you would eventually return. Josh. My brother gazed at the photographs, a wave of emotion evident on his face. I acknowledge that I made a significant error, did I not? I concur, without embellishment. However, it is clear that Grandpa believed you had the potential to perform at a higher level. The room descended into silence once more. Yet this silence was of a different nature, reflective rather than strained. Melancholic rather than hostile, the evening unfolded in an unforeseen manner, revealing years of complex emotions and unexpressed grievances. Jenna, who had been observing quietly, finally expressed her thoughts. What are the next steps in this process? The question lingered in the atmosphere for everyone present. What actions should one take following a moment of difficult realization? What are the steps to progress after experiencing betrayal and uncovering the truth? I closed the wooden box, acknowledging the significant responsibility that my grandfather entrusted to me, not only regarding the cabin but potentially for the healing of our family as well. At this moment, I softly conveyed that we should strive to uphold Grandpa's wishes for us both. The assembly concluded shortly thereafter. My parents departed, casting concerned glances back at Josh, evidently conflicted between disappointment in his behavior and concern for his well-being. Jenna embraced me briefly before departing, softly stating, "Please call me tomorrow." Subsequently, it was just Josh and me in his new residence, and the celebratory atmosphere had entirely dissipated. Josh moved through his kitchen with a sense of routine, preparing coffee that neither of us particularly desired. The silence that existed between us was laden with the weight of years filled with competition and miscommunication. He stated, after a moment of reflection, that he had not planned it as he placed a mug in front of me. To be precise, it was an act of forgery. Upon discovering the deed, I experienced feelings of anger and hurt. I composed the letter that evening, not anticipating that I would actually utilize it. Then why did you do that? I inquired, cradling the warm mug in my hands. Josh gazed into his coffee, contemplating as if it might provide insights. During the gathering this evening to celebrate my new home, I found myself desiring something more significant to share. I have just released it. He raised his gaze, his expression revealing a vulnerability that I seldom observed. I have always felt a sense of envy regarding the relationship you shared with Grandpa. I noted, without malice, that you could have also had the opportunity. He desired that. Josh acknowledged this realization, stating that he was too proud and stubborn to recognize it at the time. He paused briefly before inquiring, "What are your plans for the cabin?" I had been contemplating this question since my grandfather entrusted me with the deed 6 months prior. Maintain the current state. Primarily, the item requires some repairs, however. I wish to maintain its original character. Josh acknowledged with a nod, displaying a sense of relief. That is satisfactory. It is important to preserve it in the manner that Grandpa cherished. I observed my brother, an individual with whom I had shared my upbringing, yet at times felt a lack of familiarity. "You are always welcome to visit at any time." His eyes expanded marginally in astonishment. Is it possible that I am still considered after my previous actions? The cabin was intended to foster family unity rather than create division, I remarked, reflecting what I believed Grandpa would have desired. Despite my ongoing anger and lack of trust in you, I am committed to maintaining open lines of communication. Josh appeared to comprehend the nuanced gesture of goodwill for what it represented. Thank you for your attention. We remained in silence for several additional minutes, consuming coffee that had already cooled. The previous night was both emotionally and physically draining, and there remains a significant amount to process. I finally stood up and said, "I believe it's time for me to leave. The night has been extensive." Josh accompanied me to the door. Before my departure, he inquired, "Do you believe Grandpa was aware that this would occur? Was there a dispute about the cabin?" I reflected on the meticulous preparations that my grandfather had undertaken. including the notarized deed, the individual letters, and his guidance regarding the appropriate time to open the box. I believe he hoped it wouldn't happen, but I responded honestly, noting that he was ready if it did. Josh shook his head, a wry smile appearing on his face. He consistently maintained a strategic advantage over his peers. I concurred with that assessment. As I drove home, the wooden box securely positioned on the seat beside me, I experienced a complex blend of emotions: sorrow for the pain of the evening, relief that the truth had been revealed, and a cautious hope that this might serve as a turning point for Josh and me. The cabin keys were substantial in my pocket, representing not only metal but also the weight of responsibility and memories associated with them. My grandfather entrusted me with something of immense value, and I am committed to upholding that trust. However, there may be an opportunity for Josh to be included in that scenario, provided he is open to finding a compromise. Tomorrow, I have decided to drive up to the cabin, where I will sit on the porch swing, observe the changing light over the water, and perhaps sense Grandpa's presence once more, guiding us toward healing. Even in his absence, the cabin was exactly as I remembered it. The cabin appeared precisely as I recalled it. The property features weathered cedar siding, complemented by emerald green shutters, and a spacious porch that extends around 3 sides of the building. Upon entering the gravel driveway, the early morning sun cast elongated shadows through the pines, forming patterns on the ground that appeared to greet me upon my arrival. I paused in my vehicle for a moment to reflect on the situation. This is now under my ownership. This is not merely a structure or a parcel of land, it is a sanctuary enriched with memories and echoes of history. I can vividly envision my grandfather in his preferred rocking chair, his baseball cap tilted down over his eyes as he rests in the afternoon sunlight. The cabin key engaged with the lock, exhibiting a familiar resistance. It was necessary to adjust it precisely, a peculiar characteristic that my grandfather chose not to rectify, as he asserted it served to deter undesirable individuals. Upon entering, all items were precisely as he had left them. He arranges books on the side table and meticulously organizes fishing gear in the corner. A subtle aroma of pipe tobacco persists in the air, despite the doctor's recommendations to cease smoking years prior. I navigated the room deliberately, allowing my fingers to glide along the furniture that has been a part of our family for generations. The tranquility was serene rather than stifling, as though the cabin itself was pausing in anticipation of the forthcoming events. I felt my phone vibrate in my pocket. This is a message from Jenna. How is the cabin performing? I received a call from your mother this morning. Josh is experiencing significant difficulties. I responded that the cabin is perfect. I am currently uncertain about my feelings toward Josh. Someone promptly delivered a subsequent message. He has been reaching out to various individuals in an effort to clarify his position. Your parents are still quite distressed. I was not surprised. The consequences of the revelations from last night will require time to fully unfold. Trust, once compromised, cannot be restored immediately. I set my phone aside and approached the large picture window that offered a view of the lake. The water glistened in the morning light, remaining calm and constant amidst the human activities occurring nearby. I am present, Grandpa, I quietly stated to the vacant room. I assure you that I will take excellent care of it. 3 weeks elapsed before Josh made contact. His text was straightforward. May we have a discussion? Could we arrange a meeting at the cabin? I took a day to consider before providing a time and date for my response. A portion of me felt unprepared to share this space with him at that moment, however. Grandpa's voice continued to resonate in my thoughts. Harboring resentments can weigh heavily on one's heart. Jules, at times, the act of forgiveness serves a greater purpose for oneself than for the individual being forgiven. As Josh's car arrived the following Saturday, I was seated on the porch swing, enjoying a cup of coffee. He approached slowly, appearing more subdued than I had observed in years. He remarked that this location has remained unchanged while surveying the surroundings. I responded by gesturing to the chair opposite me, indicating that this was the concept I had in mind. He took a seat, his fingers tapping anxiously on his knees. I have been contemplating what to express for several weeks, however. Nothing seems to convey my thoughts adequately. I recommended proceeding regardless, maintaining a neutral tone. Josh inhaled deeply. I apologize. Not only for the forgery but for all related matters. I apologize for feeling jealous about your relationship with Grandpa and for harboring resentment when I should have been reflecting on my own decisions. I examined his expression, attempting to assess the authenticity of his statements. The Josh I knew was adept at communicating in a manner that aligned with others' expectations when it was advantageous to him. What was the rationale behind your decision? I inquired. This is the truth, Josh. He gazed out at the lake, remaining silent for an extended period. I believed that acquiring the cabin would compensate for the time I had not spent here. I wish I could reclaim the moments I have missed. His voice faltered slightly. That seems unwise. Does it not? His admission revealed a vulnerability that appeared authentic. This is not an excuse, but rather a somber recognition of a flawed thought process. He stated abruptly that he had utilized the funds. Grandfather's check. What is the purpose of this? I have enrolled in the woodworking course that my grandfather frequently recommended to me. I was unable to allocate sufficient time for the individual in question. He offered a modest laugh. It appears that I am not proficient in this area, however. I will remain committed to this endeavor. He was correct. Engaging in the process of creating with one's hands is a calming experience. Although it was a minor gesture, it held considerable significance coming from Josh, who had consistently demonstrated impatience towards such endeavors. I expressed quietly that he would have appreciated that. We remained in quietude for a period, attuning ourselves to the soft sound of water lapping against the shore and the distant calls of birds. The soundtrack remained consistent, having accompanied numerous conversations between my grandfather and me throughout the years. After a moment of contemplation, I stood up and expressed, I have something to present to you. Josh led me into Grandpa's study, where the morning light illuminated the antique roll-top desk in the corner. I utilized the brass key from the wooden box to unlock it, unveiling meticulously organized compartments containing papers, letters, and small mementos. I explained that Grandpa retained all items. As I retrieved a folder labeled Josh, contained within were newspaper clippings documenting Josh's high school debate championship, photographs from his college graduation, and a printout of the webpage announcing his promotion from the previous year. He held a sense of pride in your accomplishments, I remarked gently. He presented it in a manner that differed from your expectations. Josh's fingers exhibited a slight tremor as he perused the collection. I was unaware that he maintained a record of all this information. I explained that there is a folder designated for each family member. He referred to it as his achievement portfolio. Josh raised his gaze, his eyes shimmering. I acknowledge that I made a significant error, did I not? Indeed, I concurred, without embellishment. Grandpa believed in second chances, and I share that belief. I retrieved a calendar from my bag and presented it to him. I have scheduled weekends for maintenance and larger projects during my time here. I would appreciate additional assistance, even if the woodworking skills are not proficient. A smile appeared on his lips. Is that so? I stated that the intention of the cabin was to foster family unity rather than create division. That was the wish of my grandfather. Later that afternoon, we positioned ourselves at the end of the dock, allowing our feet to dangle in the refreshing water. Josh presented concepts for the renovation of the boathouse, while I documented potential designs in a notebook. Josh remarked while gazing across the water, I believe Grandpa was fully aware of his intentions when he entrusted you with this property. Could you please clarify your statement? It is not merely a matter of inheriting a cabin, he remarked contemplatively. You assumed his responsibilities, ensuring the family remains connected to what is important. As the sun began to set behind the mountains, casting golden reflections across the lake, I recognized that my grandfather had bestowed upon me more than just property. He provided me with the opportunity to address past grievances and establish new relationships. I started by addressing the brother I had almost lost because of resentment and pride.